Good evening, everybody, and welcome to another exciting night of NBA basketball.
The Pistons are digging in. They got the depth. They got the big men. They got the better basketball team. No doubt about it.
Pistons need a three, and they have just under 3 seconds to do it. Here's Johnson Phillips. Here it is. He's got it. He's got it. Johnson Phillips hits the three. Overtime. Amazing. Out of bounds. Detroit Pistons.
Pistons fans, hello and welcome back to a playoff edition of the Palace of Pistons Podcast. Myself, Aaron Johnson, here with you. Joining me is Jasper Apollonia. And we have ourselves a series, folks. There's a very famous line in sports when it comes to a playoff series. A series doesn't start until a team wins on the road, and the Detroit Pistons did not wait too long to start this series with the New York Knicks. Obviously, you go back to when the series started. Way back on Saturday, the Pistons dropped the first game to New York in New York after leading in that game into the fourth quarter. And then they come out early in the week on Monday, game two, and they take game two in New York to even up the series at 1-1. A major game for Cade Cunningham, 33 points, 12 rebounds, 3 assists, 2 steals. That followed up a game one performance where he had 21 points and 12 assists, but didn't shoot great from the field, and a lot of people really felt like Cunningham struggled in that game. But a big night for Cunningham in game two, and then the Pistons continue to get some really strong performances out of the various veterans that Trajan Langdon has added to the roster as in the offseason and into the season with Dennis Schroeder, someone that we're going to talk about as well, a major player in the game two win for Detroit. Jasper, the Pistons have a series here. I mean, what a start to the playoffs it's been for the Detroit Pistons.
No question about it, Aaron, and I'm so glad that we're on this podcast after a Pistons win because, look, game one was a missed opportunity for this team. There was a real possibility we could be talking about this team going back to Detroit up 2-0. They've outplayed the New York Knicks in 7 of 8 quarters so far. 7 of 8 quarters. And I know that we definitely expected this to be a competitive series. We both picked the Knicks to win just based on the rosters and the playoff experience. But look, we've known this was going to be a battle of a series for months now. Like once it became clear that the Pistons were probably going to make the playoffs and that they were going to be in that 4-5-6 range, I've been begging for the Knicks. And this is exactly why. You're seeing it right now. This is a Pistons team that is fighting so hard. And I think the circumstances regarding their game one loss, where they gave up that 21-0 run in the fourth quarter, it killed them. Campaign had 14 points. That was absolutely devastating as well. And you came out of that game and, Malik Beasley, Tim Hardaway Jr. both put up serious points, shot really well. Tobias Harris, 22 points in the first half. And you go, well, Cade's not going to play as poorly as he did in game one. Although, let's be clear, poorly for Cade Cunningham is still 21 points and 12 assists. You say, hey, he's not going to play as poorly as that, but can you really depend on the role players playing as well as that? And then in game two, you saw exactly why we have been such fans of this Pistons team all year and why we believe in them so much. Guess what? Tobias Harris did not have 25 points. Tim Hardaway Jr. went 0 of 8 from the floor. Malik Beasley went he had 9 points, something like that. Did not shoot well at all. The Pistons were 6 of 27 overall from 3-point land. And guess what? The Pistons still won because they had other guys stepping up. Because Cade Cunningham showed exactly why he is going to be a top 10 player in this league. And we're saying that conservatively. He proved, it's incredible, Aaron. I remember coming on this podcast before they drafted Cade Cunningham and all the things that you and I said about him, why we wanted him number 1 overall. You saw all of those things in last night's game. not last night's game, excuse me, in Monday night's game. You saw every single aspect of that: the leadership, the poise, the shot making, the desire to get his teammates involved. He only had 3 assists, but the first one of those assists, Aaron, came to Paul Reed. Paul Reed, who had to come into the game because Isaiah Stewart, their most important rim defender, was out for game 2. A huge blow to the Pistons. B-ball Paul comes in. He leaves 8 points on the floor in the first half. Couple turnovers, missed a shot. It was tough. It was tough. And you could see the frustration in him when he threw the ball away. And what does Cade Cunningham do? The second that Paul Reed comes into the game in the third quarter, drives to the rim, finds Paul Reed for a dump off and a score. That right there was just like, that is why Cade Cunningham is the man. And Paul Reed stepping up, Dennis Schroeder stepping up, Tobias Harris, and we will talk about, I think, Tobias Harris a little bit more in depth because he has been absolutely massive in this series so far. Just the way that these role players have stepped up for Detroit so far, it's showing exactly why, like I said, we believe in this team because they're a team. And when contrasted with what you saw from the New York Knicks in game 2, where everything went through Jalen Brunson, I can't imagine being a neutral and watching the series and wanting anything other than a Detroit Pistons win. Like, you don't have to be a Pistons fan. I think if you're watching the series, you're going, this team I like, this other team I don't believe in. And you're seeing exactly why right now.
This is a Pistons team that has continued to buck the trend of where we thought they would be dating back to the start of the season. I mean, we sat here on this podcast and said, hey, if they get to 35 wins, that's a massive, massive improvement for this team. And it's probably a little bit unrealistic to think they get all the way to 35 wins. They jumped from 14 to 44. We went from talking about it would be massive for them in terms of, it would be shocking for them to even get into the play-in, to them not even getting into the play-in, getting a 6 seed. I mean, going into the playoffs, it was like, okay, look, this is great that the Pistons are there, but I think we both said they're kind of playing with house money at this point. They just need to find a way to win a couple games and not get, crushed. And they go out in game 1, and again, like, they very much had a chance to win that game. They had that collapse in game 1 that you would probably expect of a young team where I think it's 9 of their guys on the roster are making their playoff debuts. They haven't played in a playoff series before. So you kind of expected them to lose that first game, but they did it in a way where it was like, dang, they actually could have won that. I mean, a 21-0 run in the fourth quarter. They come out in the fourth quarter and they commit a 5-second violation. And right after that, they commit a 24-second violation. And then so they dropped that first game, but it's like, wow, they were really competitive. They outplayed New York for 3 of the first 4 quarters. And then they go out in game 2 and they win this game. And they just continue to do more than what you would expect. They continue to overachieve. They continue to overexcel. And maybe it's on me or it's on both of us or it's on anyone who felt like, hey, they're not going to win this series. They're not really going to be able to compete as much as we'd like to think they could with a team like New York, who they have a very, very good top 7, but they continue to overachieve. And that's been something that they've done since, the start of the year. So it's becoming more and more of a reality that the Pistons are not just like fighting. They're not just a decent team. They're not just a scrappy team that's making a little bit of a push. Like, they're a legitimately good team with a legitimate superstar who is capable of pulling a roster that I think if you averaged it out across the league is probably right around average to maybe even below average in terms of talent. And he's pulling them up. And he's turning all these guys into a group, into a team. And obviously JB Bickerstaff is a major, major part of that as well. But we're sitting here now with the series tied at 1-1. The Pistons have home court advantage now. And it feels like there's some legitimate momentum for them in this series.
Oh, no question about it. They have all the momentum on their side right now. And I mean, to be clear, I do still think the Knicks are going to steal a game at Little Caesars Arena. Like, I still look, you saw the way they played in game 2. There is absolutely no way Tom Thibodeau and those players can allow themselves to have that kind of performance in game 3 or game 4. There's just absolutely no way that can happen. I mean, Karl Anthony Towns came out and was unstoppable in the first quarter of play and did nothing in the entire second half. And I think you really saw, again, I'm just going to keep hitting on this. Like, the Pistons have played exactly the way that we thought they were going to play and the way that we knew they needed to play in order to have a chance in this series so far. And the thing that's just like amazing about it is the mental toughness of this team, like the fortitude that they have, because you hit on it, Aaron, like they folded in game 1. There's no question about it. They folded in game 1. The moment was a little too big for some guys, and that's to be expected. There's no question about it. We talked about Cade potentially being the best player in this series. There was also the potential that he was going to be a big letdown. Like, young guards in their first playoff experience, generally speaking, do not play well. Magic Johnson is like an exception to the rule, but generally speaking, that's not what happens. Those guys struggle. But you saw exactly why we believe in him, because the moment wasn't too big. He came out after game 1 and he said, it was fun. You saw Asar Thompson come out after game 1. You know, Jalen Brunson had a nice game. Asar Thompson goes, nah, there's no difficulty in that. It's just about the foul calls. And boy, did game 2 ever bear that out. And we should talk about the refereeing, the foul stuff as well. But yeah, I mean, Aaron, at the end of the day, like, these guys were not cowed by the moment. Cade Cunningham was not cowed by the moment. They fell apart in game 1, and they had an opportunity in game 2 to do the exact same thing in the fourth quarter when the Knicks tied it up at 94 points. And what did they do? They did what they do all season. They gathered themselves, they regrouped, and a role player went out and hit a huge shot for them. Like Dennis Schroeder. Like that to me was just so indicative of what this Pistons team is. Like, a guy's not hitting his shots that night. That's fine. We got another guy who's going to step in, and he's going to bust his ass for as long as he's in there. And if he plays well, that's great. They're going to get him the ball. If he plays poorly, that's also fine, because his teammates are going to pick him up. It's Pistons basketball, man. Like, that's the beautiful thing about this series so far. You're 100% right. They're playing with house money. I was at a Knicks bar for game 1. Fans were trying to talk crap to me. I was like, I don't care, man. Like, the fact that we are here, I've already won. And in that first game, I tweeted it out afterwards. I was like, they're going to win game 2 or game 5. There's no question in my mind. This team was not going to fold, and they won't. And if the Knicks come out and they win game 3, I'm going to go ahead and say it right now. The Pistons will come out, and they'll win game 4. There's no question in my mind they will do that. It's just such, like, I just love this team. I don't know how else to say it. That game was just so inspiring to me, because everything that could have gone wrong for them did again, and they pushed past it in a way that is just so beyond their experience level.
Yeah, it's like I don't even feel like the Pistons have played great basketball yet in this series. You know, they gave up 123 to New York on Saturday, and that's what I said when we previewed this series. I said, look, the Pistons can't afford to get into a shootout with New York, because I just don't think they have the firepower to outlast Jalen Brunson, Karl Anthony Towns, Mikal Bridges, OG Anunoby. You know, they've got 6-7 guys that can all really score and hit shots. Granted, they didn't on Monday, but they have the guys that can do that. So for me, you know, for Detroit, it couldn't turn into a shootout, or they weren't going to be able to outlast New York. And I think that was really the case on Saturday, outside of just the fact that, look, Detroit kind of collapsed. They got a little bit too tight. The moment got a little bit too tense, and they didn't execute the way that they needed to execute. Game 2 was kind of the script for them, right? I mean, 94 points in a playoff game is phenomenal defense, but Detroit only scored 100. Like they're not having these major offensive games yet. I think it was, you said 5 of 26 or something like that from the 3-point line. I think
6 of 20. Yeah, I mean,
I think in the second half, they were 1 of 14 overall from the 3-point line. So they had that one Dennis Schroeder 3-pointer that was obviously massive, but they're not playing this phenomenal basketball where they're really hitting shots and the ball's on a string and everyone's chipping in and they're getting into that pick and roll offense that's just crushing New York, kind of like it did in the regular season. It's just not happened yet. New York's made some changes. They're really doubling off that top pick and roll. And Cade Cunningham, I'm not saying he hasn't played it well, but there was, especially more in game 1, too many times where the Knicks doubled off that initial screen and Cade just kind of danced with the ball up top instead of making that quick pass, whether he tried to get it to the big or get it to the shooter on the opposite wing to then potentially dumping down to the big, driving to the basket. But point being, I still feel like the Pistons have not hit their top gear yet. And I'm sure that if you listen to Knicks people, they're probably saying the same exact thing. But there's another gear for Detroit. And now they go to their home court with a chance to find that gear with a crowd that's certainly going to be behind them. I mean, how big are these next 2 games for Detroit? I mean, it's a playoff series, so it's obviously super important. But, they can't afford to go 0-2 here. And there's some serious momentum to where Game 3 and Game 4 at LCA, we know it is going to be an absolutely incredible arena. The fans are going to be out in droves. I won't be at Game 3, but I will be at Game 4. So I know several people that are going to the games. They got tickets already. They've been trying to get tickets. I've had people texting me from tickets like I can get them for them.
Yeah.
Hey man, want to give me tickets in lower level or mezzanine? Like I got that pull.
Aaron, I hope one day we eventually can lie to those people and say, sorry, brother, there's nothing I can do, even though we can. You know what I mean? Hopefully one day it'll be a lie when we tell them I can't help you out.
But I mean, Jasper, I want to go back and I want to talk about something that's been talked about a lot in this series. But first, let's preview this Game 3, this Game 4 for Detroit. Talk about the importance of winning at home for this young Pistons team over these next few games.
Oh my God. I mean, it's huge. Look, they won a game on the road, and that's always something that gets talked about, especially for young teams, the difficulty of winning playoff games on the road. But there is also a difficulty to winning playoff games at home. And yeah, of course, everybody thinks about the crowd is going to be raucous, and they will be. Like, people are going to, I fully anticipate Detroit showing out for this Pistons series, whether they have 2 games or 3 at home. But I really think, to me, like, I look at this and there's, of course, the great raucous crowd. There's also the thing is, like, if the Knicks go on a run at some point, boy, that raucous crowd is going to get real quiet. Like, that's another obstacle, I think, for young teams to get over as well. Like, when you're not the one doing the punching, you're the one getting hit in the mouth, and the crowd kind of quiets down a little bit and gets a little scared. You saw that with the Knicks in Game 1 and 2. That Knicks crowd they were getting real nervous at points, and like they woke back up when the Knicks went on a run. But getting to that point is a skill in and of itself for a basketball team. So I can't overstate how important these games are. I mean, Aaron, it's as simple as this. If you take care of home court advantage, you're going back to New York up 3-1 in the series, and you're probably winning. So for me, I'm looking at this. I think it's massively important that the Pistons win this. I think you're bringing up a great point as well with them getting their offense back on track. The reason why I believe the Pistons can get back on track a little bit more and why they can score more and why, frankly, I believe in their offense right now more than I do believe in the New York Knicks, despite that talent disparity. I thought it was so obvious in Game 2. Like, you saw how both teams were running their offenses. Yeah, of course there's a talent disparity in favor of the Knicks. But when OG Anunoby doesn't touch the ball, when Karl Anthony Towns isn't scoring in the second half, when Mikal Bridges is not touching the ball for 7 minutes and then he's taking two of the biggest shots of the entire game, that tells you right there, like, that's one of those things where you have to acknowledge that basketball is not played on paper. It's played on the court. And one of these teams has made sure to involve all of their players in the actions. The other has not. And you're seeing it play out in the results so far. Yes, the Knicks' talent advantage took them over the line in game one. But in game two, it was that same thing did them no good because the Pistons had a better team offense. They found a hot hand to Dennis Schroeder, and they didn't run everything through Cade. You know, they made sure to get Paul Reed involved offensively and defensively to the point where he had the highest plus minus of any Pistons player. Whereas on the other side of the ball, Cam Payne, who won the Knicks game one, played 4 minutes in game two? He got 3 quick fouls. That to be sure, there was a reason why Tim Thibodeau pulled him, but like, he never saw the floor again after that. And like, I think that right there, that philosophy, that mentality, it's the reason why you can fully buy into the Pistons winning these next 2 games. Even if again, as a betting man, do I think that the Knicks are going to win one of them? Yeah. But I look at this series kind of how I look at like the Pistons in 2004, honestly, against the Lakers, where it's like, you look at both teams on paper, one of them's the obvious choice. But when you watch both of these teams play, who's been the best player in this series so far? Who's been the better team so far?
Yeah. I think it's right when we've both said it, and I think it's a common sentiment. The Pistons have been the better team for 7 out of 8 quarters so far in this series. So, you know, this isn't a fluke. This isn't the Pistons got lucky in game 2. You know, they made a ton of shots. The Knicks shot a cold ball. Like, no, the Pistons very much could be up in this series 2-0. So, looking at these next 2 games, you know, let's start with game 3, right? You're coming home. You've had some additional days of rest. You're first off hoping that Isaiah Stewart can come back. He's listed as questionable as of Wednesday night. He did not play in game 2. Paul Reed, we've talked about him a lot, had a really, really shaky start in the first half, and it was like, wow, they're really, really, really going to miss Isaiah Stewart. Bounced back mightily in the second half, made some major, major plays for them, just like some other key players on the bench did. Dennis Schroeder, definitely one of them. But you'd still like to have Isaiah Stewart back, you know, one of the best defenders, not just on the team, but in the league at the rim, and the effort, the physicality that he brings, especially in a series that has been very, very physical, is really, really important. So we'll see if Isaiah Stewart is good to go. Again, listed as questionable. Had a couple extra days of rest, so hopefully that means for Detroit's sake that he'll be able to go. But what is the next part of this series going to look like? Because both teams have talked a lot about the officiating. There's been a lot of talk about the officiating overall. On the Knicks side, we've heard from Tom Thibodeau. He's not happy with the whistle. He's not happy with the amount of free throws that his team is taking compared to the Detroit Pistons. He talked at length about Jalen Brunson not getting enough free throw calls. He's talked at length about how the Pistons are getting calls that the Knicks are not getting on their side of the court. And the Pistons on the other end have said that, hey, they're okay with the whistle. They're okay with the physicality that the game's being played at right now. They understand fouls are going to be called, and they're willing to play through that physicality. From the outside perspective, not from one team or the other, but just from the viewing perspective, I saw a ton of discourse, especially during game 2, talking about Jalen Brunson specifically. And it was the opposite of what Tom Thibodeau was saying. Again, Thibodeau saying Brunson deserved more foul calls, more free throws. And I saw the sentiment being Jalen Brunson was out there acting, foul baiting, flailing, flopping to get fouls the entire game. And that's not from a Pistons community member. It's from national media members that have a long-standing basis in the league. So Jasper, I feel like we're going to be on the same page here. What has your thoughts been on the officiating in this series?
Come on. Absurd. What an absurd statement for Tom Thibodeau to make. And I know why he's making it. He's trying to win this series, and he's trying to get his guys free throws. Like, I understand. And the casual fan will look at the free throw discrepancy, and they'll go, oh, well, the Pistons are getting better calls. But, like, come on, man. Anybody watching these games sees the difference between the type of offense that the Pistons are running and the type of offense that the Knicks are running. And one of them is foul baiting on their way to the rim. The other one is just trying to get to the rim. And national media can see it. Neutrals can see it. Knicks fans will complain, and they'll have their narratives. Oh, they shot 14 more free throws than the Knicks. Well, guess what? The Knicks actually had 2 fewer foul calls called on them than the Pistons did in game 2. The reason for that is because the reason for the free throw discrepancy is that the Pistons calls occurred when they were going to the rim. The Knicks the Knicks foul calls occurred while they were out on the perimeter. Jalen Brunson's doing a little bit of that. So for me, this is an absurd narrative. Like there's nothing to it. I don't think neutrals are falling for it. I mean, Pistons fans for sure are not falling for it. I hope the refs don't fall for it. Yes, Cade had one call that I thought that was like, that wasn't a foul. There was one. That was it. Everything else was a foul. There was no Pistons were not getting super advantageous calls. And I feel like you're going to feel exactly the same way on this. Like, yeah, I felt like the Pistons got a better whistle than they have during the year. Right. But I've also felt like the Pistons have one of the worst whistles in the entire league. So, like, yeah, they just got a fair whistle for once. God forbid.
Look, I don't want to sit here and I don't want to just say a bunch of things that sound, pro Pistons or anti Knicks, because people will say, well, you're a Pistons, your podcast covers the Pistons. Of course you feel that way. But, if you've listened to the show over the years, you know how I feel about the foul baiting stuff. You know how I feel about the unnaturally throwing yourself into the defender's body just to try to get a whistle. Like those are not basketball plays to me. And again, I feel like I've also said this before. I thought the league changed the rules to make that not a foul, to not give those calls to the offensive player. But that's definitely changed because Jalen Brunson is getting those calls, and we've seen other players get those calls this year and years past. Maybe they've changed it a little bit, but it's still having an effect in this series. I think Jalen Brunson plays whatever he plays in a game. If he plays 40 minutes, if he plays 42 minutes, if he plays 48 minutes, like he's playing 48 minutes of foul baiting. And I don't necessarily know how that's an enjoyable way to play basketball. It doesn't feel organic. It sure as heck doesn't look organic. And I just don't think that's a sustainable way to try to win games in the postseason. Relying on a whistle, relying on getting an officiating crew to call the game in an inorganic way. It just doesn't seem like a fruitful way to have success in the postseason. Jalen Brunson is a phenomenal basketball player. He has become one of the league's best guards, not just in the East, but in the overall NBA. He's become one of the best guards in the league, and he doesn't need to resort to just flailing around at the top of the key, throwing himself into defenders any chance he gets. It's just not basketball. And so, from my perspective, I'm okay with the officials not calling those fouls, because in my mind, they aren't fouls. If you're just out there trying to bait the defender into making some sort of contact with you, it's just not a basketball play to me. And I still think some of the foul calls that Asar Thompson's, who's been the primary defender on Jalen Brunson throughout the series, I still think some of the fouls that he's been tabbed with are undeserved, because it's Jalen Brunson initiating the contact. And at some point, you can't just protect the offensive player. You also have to protect the defender, because they have the right to play defense to try to stop the opposing team. So, I don't think the officiating has been bad in this series. It certainly has not felt one-sided. I think, You can look at the stats and say, hey, the Knicks have actually had less fouls called on them. But the free throw stuff's a joke to me because it's not the officiating crew's job to go out there and make sure that the Pistons and the Knicks both shoot 21 free throws each in a game. It's their job to call the fouls on the team that's committing the foul. Like, that's why I've never understood the narrative of, oh, so-and-so, they're shooting 28 free throws. This team only has 20. Obviously, this game has been skewed to the other team. No, like, sometimes one team just fouls more than the other team. And Jasper, I think you made a great point. Like, you look at the overall number of fouls both teams have been tabbed with in this series. Look at where the fouls are occurring. All those fouls called against Jalen Brunson's defender above the 3-point line, in between the half court line, where Brunson's flailing his body, throwing his head back. That's my biggest pet peeve, is the throwing the head back. It's the worst basketball play to me, not basketball play. But that's where those fouls are coming in for Detroit. A lot of fouls that the Knicks are getting called on are because Detroit's driving to the basket. They're going up against contact, whether it's Bridges, it's Anunoby, it's Mitchell Robinson. They're going up against 2, 3, 4 defenders. A lot of times it's Cade Cunningham going into 2, 3, 4 defenders and trying to finish at the rim. There's going to be a lot of contact on those plays, and when a foul's called, he's going to be shooting in that situation. So I don't want to spend too much more time talking about the officiating, the free throws, things like that, but it's been such a hot button topic in this series that I felt like we had to talk about it.
Aaron, it's
not a thing to me.
It's as simple as this. Game 1, Knicks scored 62 points in the paint. Game 2, they scored 40. Gosh, I wonder why there was a free throw discrepancy. Like, I don't know, man. Like, to me, it just seems so obvious. And I'm glad you brought up the Asar Thompson thing because, boy, I mean, karmically speaking, the Knicks did not deserve to win Game 2 with Brunson doing what he was. The last 2 fouls on Asar, I mean, it wasn't Jalen Brunson trying to attack the defender or trying to attack the rim. It was Jalen Brunson trying to foul Asar Thompson out of the game. And you have not seen the Pistons do anything like that in this series. It's not basketball. And like you said, like they've tried to, get that type of play out of the league. I think the fact that Brunson is so small makes it harder to officiate him. Like you talk about the Harden thing. It's a bigger issue, I think, when it comes to somebody like Jalen Brunson, just because he's short and he's small and he's easy to push around. Let's get to some of these role players though, because the officiating stuff is to me frustrating to talk about. What's really fun for me to talk about is guys like Dennis Schroeder stepping up in that game. You said they hit 1-3 in the second half. Well, it was the biggest shot of the game, Aaron. And we have to talk about what Tobias Harris has done through 2 games. Because yes, Cade Cunningham has been the best player for the Pistons so far. But what Tobias Harris has done on both ends of the floor so far is nothing short of spectacular. And you're not going to see a lot of headlines about it. You're not going to see people, going on their national podcasts and talking about how incredible Tobias Harris has been. But you brought up Isaiah Stewart not being in there for Game 2. And that was something that I was extremely worried about in regards to the Pistons' rim protection. I've said it. I think how Karl Anthony Towns plays is so determinant in how this series goes. I think these first 2 games have played that out. He played really well in Game 1. Knicks won. He did nothing in Game 2. Knicks lost. And we know Jalen Brunson's going to get his. But what Tobias Harris did defensively on Karl Anthony Towns in Game 2, wow, man. Like, what a performance. And if you go back and you watch that game over, every time the Pistons needed a big rebound, every time the Pistons needed a stop, every time the Pistons needed just a little 2-point score to stop the bleeding, you know who was there? Tobias Harris. Every single time. And look, he outscored and out-rebounded Karl Anthony Towns. He outscored and out-rebounded him, and that was not a fluke. He outplayed him. And the fact that he is, he's not a little guy, but yeah, he's 6'8". Karl-Anthony Towns is like a 6'11" dude. Like, he should be dominating that matchup. And of course, part of that is on Towns being probably a little too passive, especially in the second half. And, we're not a Knicks podcast, so we're not going to break all that down. But boy, there was a lot of people at blame for that Knicks loss, whether it's Jalen Brunson or Tom Thibodeau or Karl-Anthony Towns himself. I don't know how the hell you let that second half happen when he dominated the first quarter. But it's such an absolute win for Tobias Harris. And for all of us that thought he was going to be a big addition to this team, he just proved exactly why you love this Pistons team, because it doesn't matter if you're scoring in one game or you're doing the gritty work in the next. All of these guys are on the same page, and they know what role they have to play, and they're going to play it every single game to the best of their ability.
Tobias Harris has made all of the pundits that spewed scoff and goff about the Pistons signing him this past offseason, he's made everyone eat their words. And he was doing it in the regular season for the Pistons, maybe when people weren't really paying attention to them. But now here on the national stage in the playoffs, he's done the exact same, maybe even at a more amplified level. The scoring that he's provided, the shooting that he's provided, the rebounding. I mean, what he did, Jasper, you talked about it in game 2 against Karl-Anthony Towns. Karl-Anthony Towns got him the first few times in that first quarter, and he was letting Tobias Harris hear about it. And Tobias Harris just shut him out for the rest of the game after that. He's doing everything that this team could possibly want or hope for from him. He has been an absolute rock for them. And I would not want to know how bad the Pistons would lose these games with had Tobias Harris not been out there. He's been such a massive addition to this team. And you think about it from Detroit's roster perspective, he's their second best player. And you look across the league and you look at the playoff rosters, and Tobias Harris might be the worst number 2 player on every playoff team overall, but he's just been absolutely phenomenal for Detroit. And the moment hasn't been too big for him, in a series, especially at the beginning of it, where again, so many guys are getting their first taste of playoff action, the pressure, the intensity, the physicality of playoff basketball. Tobias Harris has risen to the occasion as just a steady rock for this team. He has really embodied that veteran presence that, was the hope when bringing him in. But he's embodied it on the court, and it's been a constant all year long, but he's taken it to another level here in the playoffs. He's been such a huge part, going back to game 1, even though Detroit lost it, Cade Cunningham obviously struggled from the field, but Tobias Harris was one of those guys that kept the Pistons going in that game. He was a big reason why they were leading going into the fourth quarter. He was making plays.
I think there's a legitimate argument to be made that had they won game 1, Tobias Harris would have been the most crucial player to both of their playoff victories. I think there's a legitimate argument to be made for that because, of course, like Cade was incredible. Obviously, they don't win that game without a superstar in Cade Cunningham. That's just the reality of the playoffs. But look, you said, Tobias Harris is their second best player. I think you can make an argument for many guys being their second best player. And that's indicative of this team in general. Like some nights, Malik Beasley's their second best player. Some nights it's Tobias Harris. Some nights it's Asar Thompson. Once every 20 games, it's Ron Holland or whatever. And I just think that it's so indicative of what this Pistons team is all about. Everybody knows their role. And Tobias Harris has played to his role so perfectly so far. He knew exactly what was expected of him through these first 2 games, and he's gone out there and he's performed. Yeah. Are we expecting him to block Karl-Anthony Towns 15 times in a game? No, not really. Are we expecting him to shut him out? No, not really. But what we do expect him to do is fight with him and push him out of the paint. And there were so many plays in that game where you saw Karl-Anthony Towns just not comfortable, not able to get where he wanted to in the post. And it's not that he couldn't have fought for it. Perhaps he could have, but he had to fight for it to get it. There was no easy buckets for anybody on that Knicks team. And that wasn't necessarily the case for the Pistons. Like we said, the one Dennis Schroeder 3, that came because Jalen Brunson was not locked in defensively. And he didn't get out to the perimeter quick enough on a switch. And that lost them the game. I can't see that happening with the Pistons. It's just not something I see happening with this team. And I think this is a moment where, regardless of what else happens in this series, we have to give so much credit to Trajan Langdon. I just quickly, I have to say with Trajan Langdon, because wow, every single one of this guy's signings has been monstrously good. Malik Beasley, a finalist for the 6th Man of the Year. JB Bickerstaff, our Coach of the Year. Whatever, he's not going to win it. It's fine. I don't care. But massive. Tobias Harris, everybody poo-pooed the signing. Tremendous. Tim Hardaway Jr., everybody was crapping on that deal for Quentin Grimes. Do you want Quentin Grimes over Tim Hardaway Jr. right now? I don't. I'm good. I'm good where I'm at. And even Dennis Schroeder, he got him for free, man. He got him for absolutely free, and he won you a playoff game. Come on. Even the tiny stuff, B-Ball Paul. What a tremendous pickup for a third-string center that was. Truly, can you imagine them winning that game with some of the other third-string centers you see out there in the NBA these days? I really can't. So, yeah, we have to give Trajan Langdon a lot of credit for the Pistons just being in this position at all. I know he didn't expect it, but wow. I mean, talk about just hitting every freaking ball out of the park. I mean, this was a batting practice season for Trajan Langdon in his first year as the Pistons GM. He just absolutely killed it. Absolutely killed it. How many dudes who just came into this team this year have been a massive part of them winning their first playoff game in 17 seasons?
Jasper, before the series started, I predicted the New York Knicks to win it in 7. I want to say you had the Knicks in 6 or 7.
I had them in 6, but I also have a tweet that I've never deleted where I said the Pistons were going to win in 6. So I'm just going to play both sides on this.
So now that we're through 2 games and the series is at 1-1, has your opinion changed on how this series plays out?
No, I still think it's probably Knicks in 6. Like I said, I think they're winning a game in Little Caesars Arena. And then I think they probably win. I don't know. Then I think they probably win game 5 and then game 6. That's my opinion. Look, I mean, if they play like they played in game 2, if they're running everything through Jalen Brunson and they're not giving Karl Anthony Towns post touches, and the Pistons offense actually wakes up a little bit, I think it could be real scary hours. If Asar Thompson can stay on the floor for 30 minutes guarding Jalen Brunson, it's going to be real scary for the New York Knicks. Let me tell you, it's going to be really scary if they can't follow him out after 20 minutes. The Pistons can still win this, but
it is really interesting to me because, I've sat here and I've said the Pistons have won the first 7 of 8 quarters of this series. They've been the better team in pretty much all of the minutes played in this series so far. And I still feel like they haven't played great basketball yet. But I still feel like at the end of the day, the Knicks probably still win this series in 7. I still think there is a chance for the Pistons to win this series. I think for me, I feel there's a greater chance for them now after seeing these first 2 games because the Pistons, outside of the fourth quarter of game 1, they don't look scared. They don't look phased. They don't look unwilling to meet the physicality, to play with the whistle they're being dealt with. They've made the adjustments. They've matched that level of intensity, and they've really flustered New York. I mean, you have Karl Anthony Towns, you have Jalen Brunson, you have Tom Thibodeau, all of them upset, talking about the officiating, complaining during the games. You really have gotten under their skin if you're the Detroit Pistons. And so maybe they have a more than a puncher's chance. Maybe they really do have a very real shot of winning this series. Game 3 and Game 4 are going to be so very telling. Obviously, it's a playoff series. Every game means everything. So Detroit has the momentum. They have the home court. They have the Knicks in a prime position. The Pistons have to turn into the Hunters now. The Pistons have to find that next gear. They've got to shoot a better basketball. They've got to cut down the turnover. That was a major problem for them in Game 1. It was a major problem for them in the first half of Game 2. They did a much better job protecting the ball in the second half of Game 2. If they can make some subtle changes, some subtle improvements, and then maybe get a little bit hot from the court so they're not shooting 1 of 14 in the second half again from a three-point line, I don't know, man. Maybe the Pistons do win this series. Maybe we've just continued to underestimate what they're capable of. I don't know. It feels like such a coin flip right now for me.
Look, this has always been a winnable series. I've never said otherwise. Like, there was never any point where I was like, oh yeah, you know, the Pistons will fight, but the Knicks are definitely going to win. No, I've never felt that way. And seeing these first two games, I think shows you exactly why. Like, nothing that has happened so far has been surprising at all. Like, nothing about it has surprised me, other than maybe Karl Anthony. No, but even Karl Anthony Towns not getting like points in the second half. No, that doesn't surprise me because he's soft. Like, this Knicks team is soft. Karl Anthony Towns is soft. They don't play exceptionally well defensively. That's just who the Knicks are. Like, they've been that all season. And on the flip side, the Pistons busting their ass, having guys you don't expect show up in big moments, playing physical, playing tough, never having the moment be too big for them, like never giving up, always being in it, always fighting. Yes, losing some tough ones, but winning some tough ones as well. There's nothing about this series so far that has surprised me. Nothing.
Never giving up. All of a sudden, the Detroit Pistons are John Cena.
Hey, man. Well, I'll take a 17th title anytime. I'll take one of those any day. And look, like they're not gonna win the championship. They're not gonna beat the Boston Celtics, even if they can make it past this round. But again, it will not surprise me if they lose in 6 or 7. If they win in 6 or 7, it will not show me anything from this team that I have not seen this entire season. And that's like the beautiful part about it, man, is like watching all these national pundits, watching all these neutrals just tuning in, and the way that they're talking about the Pistons and all the things they're giving them praise for. It's like, yeah, man, where you been? Yeah, Tobias Harris battled defensively against a guy who's bigger than him. We know. We've been watching it all year long. Like, Dennis Schroeder stepped up in a way that you didn't expect him to. We know. Malik Beasley and Tim Hardaway Jr. came out in Game 1 and just absolutely ripped the Nets. We know. This has been happening all year long. And I think the stuff, especially from the young guys with like Cade and Asar, I love their comments. Like Cade just being like, yeah, this is fun. I'm ready for Game 2. Bring it on. Asar saying like, nah, it's the refereeing. This isn't a tough matchup for me at all. Like, that stuff just, it's so beautiful to see, but it's also just like, it's what I expect, man. It's Detroit basketball. This is who we are. And like, it's time for everybody else to see. Like, this is Pistons basketball. Back again. Like, catch us next year. See what happens.
Game 3 at LCA on Thursday night, the day that we are releasing this episode of the Palace of Pistons podcast. Game 4 at LCA on Sunday. That is this week's podcast. It's crazy to sit here talking about Detroit Pistons and the playoffs, and then not only being in the playoffs, but winning a playoff game and now potentially winning a playoff series. They get their first playoff win for the first time in, 17 years? Absolutely crazy that it's been that long. But Jasper, thanks so much for being here with me this week. before everyone goes, make sure you leave a like, you hit the subscribe button, you hit the follow button, leave us a comment. Let us know what you think about the series so far. Have you felt the officiating's been one-sided? Definitely let us know what you think about this series so far for the Detroit Pistons. Thanks so much for watching. Thanks so much for listening. We'll see you guys next time on another edition of the Palace of Pistons Podcast.